A firm rejection. A shattered glass.
And watch this. He hung on to it just a little bit too long and shattered.
An embarrassing turnover. This was the cruelest of welcomes for the Silverbacks. But that didn't stop them from attempting to go on and on. The odd steal here and a monstrous dunk there.
All the way is Inabu, and he puts it up there with two hands.
And it looked like the Silverbacks weren't out of place. Some decent players had been lured to the team, and they didn't disappoint.
Uganda not showing any signs of stage fright here early on. Ochidi, and it helps when you have a guy, a power forward, that hits 4 3-pointers.
But they too could only do as much. This, though, was far from being a case of shattered dreams. Lessons were learnt not just by the Silverbacks, who left with a single win, but also the Gazelles, who beat South Africa and Algeria. The Gazelles came up against some pretty tough competition. They were at times slaughtered, but for the most part, they held their own.
The AfroBasket in Tunisia was a tournament to forget, especially for the men's basketball team, having gone there and lost their group matches. Nigeria losing to Nigeria 98-59, 77-55 to Tunisia, and 60-56 to the Central African Republic.
Yes, Joel, you could say that makes for grim reading, certainly, but it's superficial, because this was a learning curve for this team. It was, well, to the best of my knowledge, the first time, the Silverbacks have played at the AfroBasket Championship. They took quite a number of decent players. There were some NCAA titleists, former NBA drafts, players like Stanley Ochiti, a 6'8", number 4, a guy who had soft hands and exceptional footwork, who caught my eye. There was also Brandon Sevirumbi, a former NBA draft. He struggled a bit, but he eventually, did make a nuisance of himself in the paint. But it was greatly pleasing, Joel, to see also players who ply their trade in the National Basketball League, in our own league here. Yes, taking part and not doing themselves any damage. Certainly, you'd say that of Jimmy Enabu and Samuel Kalwanyi, who did chip in with 1 or 2 good showings there in Tunisia.
Right, and can you attribute this performance in Tunisia to the fact that probably some of these players hadn't played or trained together for quite some time?
Well, for one, FUBA did not get that much support from government, to put together to have these players in camp for a protracted period. You're talking of the likes of Kasim Nagwere, the likes of Josh Johnson. These are players who are coming from different parts of the globe. They needed, yes, to kind of develop, that chemistry. But they didn't have that. FUBA didn't have those funds, to have this team in camp for a long period.
All right, and of course went and lost the round of 16 match to Senegal, 79-48.
Yeah.
Eventually winning the placement match, and the only match they won at the tournament, which finished
against Zimbabwe.
Yeah, 72-64 against Zimbabwe.
Yes.
That saw them finish 15th place.
Yes, at least
bottom, second from bottom. At
least they avoided holding the wooden spoon, Joel. That is an honor that went to Zimbabwe. It was for me. It was a tournament. I didn't expect much from the team, given the fact that what we've just talked about, the players weren't in camp for a long time, and this was the first time for many of these players, at least, to play at that big level. So it was, there were positives to take out from this. Going forward, I think Uganda can make itself dominant in the Zone 5 and continue to qualify for many of these AfroBasket tournaments, because the more you play these tournaments, the more you get a hang of it, and the more you get used to it, the more you brighten your chances of winning the tournament. Nigeria, who won, this was just their first title, Nigeria, but they had been playing in AfroBasket for donkey's years.
Of course, in contrast to the women, who put up a rather, good show.
Yeah.
They went there and, they won one match in their group out of 5.
They beat South Africa.
They beat South Africa.
Yeah.
Finished 10th overall.
Yeah.
But lost the 10th placement match to Guinea, 53-52, very tight.
Yeah, it was a topsy-turvy game. The women actually, for me, I take my hat off to them. The team was shown of the services of Claire Lamunu and Sharon Birungi, very important players in that paint. They hope, the team, to pound that inside. It didn't have these players. They thought they would use the All-Africa games as a build-up, to tune up the side. But NCS told them at the 11th hour that they didn't have funds, and so that they weren't going to play in the All-Africa games. They arrived in Cameroon, where this AfroBasket women tournament was taking place, just hours before their first match against Gabon. They eventually lost that match 73-39. Yes, it was a yawning gap. But after, they kind of started picking on, and they were running teams close here. If you can see, the scoreline against Malawi, Mali, which is a very strong side. Score. Yeah, it was quite close. Not close, okay, but close by Ugandan standards, you would say 73-55. And the fact that Peace Proskovia, what a talent she is. She played at the Netball World Cup.
She's playing at the AfroBasket.
And she finished as the tournament's best rebounder. She was the tournament's best rebounder, which just speaks volumes about this young girl's talent.
Talking about the league Canons, the Lady Canons winning the series 4-2, and the men Oilers, at one point Oilers were leading. Was it 2-0?
Yes.
Then it went to 3-1. Then it went to 3-2. Then we went to 3-3, and all of a sudden, it forced Game 7, which Oilers went and won and retained the title.
It was a three-peat for Oilers. Only Falcons has managed to do that. They won Falcons titles between 2002 and 2004. Oilers pulling this off this is what, their 4th or 3rd year in the top flight. It's just a remarkable story.
So what can we see in 2016? What do we see for the men's and women's national sides and the league too? The league, the Oilers retaining the title? The league, it's very interesting because the traditional sides are kind of petering out. Falcons are no longer the force they were. Yes, we expected them to do much with the money they got from Star Times. They went and got some Kenyan players, but the Kenyan players, I think they struggled, to get a grip of the National Basketball League here in Uganda. Power, their problems are well documented. They brought in a disciplinarian in Robert Madoi, and just when he was starting to crack the whip, they pushed him out, and Banen Sankunda returned, and power was being power, was it? So next year, you ask, what do I expect next year? I expect a lot from the university sides, UCU Canons, KIU Titans. Yes, and KIU Titans, and even Ndeji.